All right, let's jump right into this explainer and explore the epic journey mapped out in ESMA's latest final report on investment fund data. If you've been following European financial regulation at all, you already know that data reporting has become, well, something of an unwieldy beast. But the European Securities and Markets Authority has put forth a truly monumental plan to finally tame it. Today, we're going to break down their grand vision for a fully integrated collection system for funds data. Think of this as an epic quest to bring order to a deeply chaotic realm. Because right now, fund managers are basically weighed down by a fractured realm of competing regulatory kingdoms, all demanding duplicative data tributes. Over the years, reporting obligations have just sort of built up incrementally across different policy domains. And the result? An incredibly heavy, tangled web of overlapping frameworks. Asset managers are spending enormous amounts of time and capital just to comply with multiple authorities who are essentially asking for the exact same information, just formatted slightly differently. It's an exhausting, redundant process, and it creates a massive operational burden for everyone involved. So that brings us to the core mystery of our explainer today. How do we actually forge order out of this chaotic, multi-layered system? How do we transition from a reality of endless paperwork and dual submissions to a streamlined, efficient future? ESMA's report isn't just complaining about the problem, which is great. Instead, it lays out a highly detailed, step-by-step roadmap for a completely unified future. Part 1. The Fractured Reporting Realm. To really grasp the solution, we first need to look at the specific factions creating this heavy compliance burden in the first place. The current map is divided among distinct frameworks, things like AIFMD for alternative investment funds, UCITS for mutual funds, the money market funds regulation, and the European Central Bank statistical frameworks. They all govern different aspects of the market, sure, but they heavily overlap. For instance, they all demand the exact same core data points, like net asset value, portfolio composition, or assets under management, but they demand them in totally different formats, at different frequencies, and with completely different definitions. It is literally like having 4 different bosses who all want the same report, but one wants it in French, one in German, one in Spanish, and one in Italian. The contrast here is just stark. We're looking at the costly, redundant systems of today versus the elegant, streamlined highway of tomorrow. The old burden is defined by semantic inconsistencies, where the exact same term means something entirely different depending on which regulator you are talking to. The new vision, though, that relies on integration, proportionality, and a master key that unlocks all doors, a single dynamic template. Part 2. One report to rule them. We are essentially looking at the regulatory equivalent of Lord of the Rings here, which is the overarching mission proposed to conquer this massive fragmentation. ESMA is essentially stepping up as the central council, guiding the market toward a new unified order. Through extensive public consultations and massive data collection exercises, ESMA has heard the cries of the market participants and the national competent authorities. They recognize, absolutely, that the current path is completely unsustainable, so they've proposed a radical shift in how Europe actually handles its financial data. And here is the fundamental philosophy driving it all. A kind of prophecy designed to eliminate those endless, repetitive submissions under national and union laws. Define once, report once. Or, as the report also calls it, report once, use many times. If an asset manager submits a piece of granular data, the authority should just be able to share that data amongst themselves to derive whatever aggregated metrics they need, rather than forcing the manager to submit the whole thing multiple times. Makes sense, right? So, the absolutely crucial point here is the creation of one master artifact, one single dynamic reporting template to bind them all, fulfilling the needs of all relevant authorities. Instead of having separate templates for AIFMD, UCITS, and ECB statistics, there's just going to be one unified framework. By providing authorities with a shared, coherent, and highly granular dataset, this single template is designed to essentially eliminate the need for parallel national data collections entirely. Part 3. Forging a modular template. But how do you actually craft a single template that fits massive cross-border managers and smaller, simpler funds at the exact same time? Well, you can't just create a rigid one-size-fits-all monolith, because that would unfairly crush the smaller players. So the solution is a modular structure. It has foundational core layers for everyone, and then specialized thematic layers to guarantee proportionality. Every single fund completes the core modules, things like fund identification and basic classification. But then, say you are a real estate fund, you only fill out a specific thematic module tailored just to real estate exposures. If you're a simple fund, you don't even have to look at the complex modules. And brilliantly, they've also designed ad hoc crisis modules. Instead of regulators frantically scrambling to create new reporting laws during a market meltdown, they can simply flip a switch to activate a pre-designed module, gather targeted data, and then turn it right back off when the crisis passes. Part 4. Speaking a common tongue. Because to truly unite these diverse financial realms, they absolutely must speak the exact same machine-readable language. After all, a template is only as good as the definitions behind it. And this regulatory data dictionary is the magic that cures all those semantic inconsistencies, ensuring that concepts like assets under management mean the exact same thing everywhere. Right now, asset classification is highly fragmented. In fact, the report notes there are over 50 different classifications potentially requested for the exact same instrument across different frameworks. 50. The regulatory data dictionary will finally standardize all of this into one common tongue. This ensures that not only do we as humans agree on what the words mean, but our systems can automatically exchange them without any manual intervention. Think of it like this. The semantic layer represents the human and business understanding. It tells us exactly what a specific metric actually is. The syntactic layer, on the other hand, is strictly for the machines. It formats the data so that a computer at a fund manager's office can seamlessly transmit it to a national authority who can then instantly share it with the ECB, completely flawlessly. Part 5. The journey ahead. Transforming an entire continent's financial infrastructure is an epic quest, so let's take a look at the roadmap. This definitely isn't going to happen overnight. It requires a highly structured, phased approach to prevent massive system shocks. Phase 1 is a multi-year journey, targeting the consolidation of AIFMD and UCITS supervisory reporting by 2029 at the earliest. ESMA is aiming to draft the regulatory and implementing technical standards by April 2027. Following that, there obviously needs to be ample time for the industry to actually build and test the IT infrastructure. So realistically, we are looking at the first half of 2029 before this integrated reporting framework actually goes live. Then, once that first phase is completely secure, the integration will expand to include statistical reporting, relying heavily on new data sharing agreements between authorities. Phase 2 brings the money market funds and the ECB's massive statistical requirements into the fold. This is going to require complex governance and data sharing agreements between ESMA, the national competent authorities, and the central banks to ensure that data flows securely and legally across borders. But, and this is a big but, as the report warns, this quest only succeeds if old overlapping national requirements are truly replaced, not just added to. Market participants were very clear in their feedback to ESMA on this. This whole endeavor is totally pointless if it just adds a new super template on top of everything else they already do. Success strictly depends on the absolute removal of existing legacy obligations. The old rings of power literally must be destroyed for the one new ring to function properly. National authorities have to refrain from asking for parallel, backdoor data requests. Ultimately, this monumental integration effort has a very clear goal: to enhance the integrity and stability of the financial system while giving regulators better visibility, all while freeing asset managers from redundant paperwork. It's a win-win vision. By standardizing the data at a highly granular level, systemic risk assessment becomes vastly more accurate across the entire European Union. And by relying on that single modular template, one report to rule them all, the industry saves tremendous amounts of capital that can be much better deployed elsewhere. So, as that 2029 horizon slowly approaches, the real question is, how will your fellowship prepare? How will your organization adapt its systems to speak this new common tongue? Because it really is time to start evaluating your current data architectures. The age of fragmented, duplicative reporting is coming to an end, and the era of integrated data is dawning. If ESMA succeeds, the old way is over. But are we truly ready to let go of our old, familiar kingdoms to embrace a unified future? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.